Hello, vinyl community. This is Robert from Block's Sonic Wafers, and I'm putting together a video for the soundtrack thread redo for 2022. It has caused a mess. I've had to go looking here and there and everywhere, and gathered up as many soundtracks as I could put my hands on. I'm sure I have more in storage. If you've followed my channel, I've told that story, and so I've got some vinyl soundtracks that are put away, such as Woodstock. Woodstock is an original motion picture soundtrack, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm not sure what else is in there. As you can see, I have a mess right here in front of me. So I'm going to go through these 20 questions, and I'm probably going to show a few soundtracks that aren't involved in the 20 questions, just because I went through the trouble of digging them all out. So let's get started here. I do have a timer on for 18 minutes. I'm going to try to adhere to that, but it's probably not happening. How many movie soundtracks? Question number 1. I'm guesstimating, counting what I have dug up here and plus what's in storage, around 50. So I'm nowhere near what our hostess has. And then the second question is the first soundtrack you ever bought. Now, I'm old and my memory's not so good. So to the best of my recollection, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this was probably the first. 1965. This is the original soundtrack version as it came out in the US. So it does include the score by Ken Thorne, which I, for one, appreciate greatly. I think it's very good. Now, the UK version eliminated the score part from the soundtrack. So I'm glad I've got this US version. So that's question number 2. Number 3 is the most recent that I have purchased. And that would be Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It is on CD. I think it's available on vinyl. And it's the equivalent of 2 LPs worth of material. It's got a bunch of stuff that you may and may not recognize. Chad and Jeremy's on here. Several songs by Paul Revere and the Raiders. And, I've always been a fan of that band. It's got the Box Tops, Deep Purple, doing Kentucky Woman, one of their early hits. A lot of great stuff. Tarantino usually puts together pretty good soundtracks, and this is one of them. So that was question number 3. Most listened to. I'm going to go back to this one because of the length of time I've had it. I've been a Beatle fan since I was a kid. So this one's definitely been on the player and CD player and the DVD and the Blu-ray. This has to be it. Best opening song. You know, this one doesn't actually call itself a soundtrack from the film, but it basically is. It's One Trick Pony by Paul Simon. And the first track on here is Late in the Evening. He had a great band put together for that film, and they performed these songs on here greatly, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with the song Late in the Evening. If not, you ought to check it out. And the soundtrack might be better than the movie on this one. I didn't think of this one when that question came up, but it's a possibility. So, that was the best opening song. Now we're up to number 6. Composer. I was going to say Danny Elfman, but I don't actually have any movie soundtracks that were done by Elfman. I do have some Oingo Boingo. As you know, after he left Oingo Boingo, he wrote the theme for The Simpsons, and he did most of the Tim Burton movies, if not all. And he's got his fingers in a lot of pies. I went with Michael Kamen, and I don't really know if I have a Michael Kamen original soundtrack except for this. This is The Wall live in Berlin. Michael Kamen is there and conducts the orchestra throughout this concert. It took place on Saturday, the 21st of July, 1990, and it is a film. So I hope this counts, but I'm picking Michael Kamen. And my pen fell apart. Lackluster. You know, this isn't even a movie, but it is the original soundtrack, Volume 1, for the show The Walking Dead. And it's not very good. You know, they even did a remix of the title theme on here, which is what I was interested in. And the remix, frankly, is terrible. So this is my lackluster soundtrack. Better than the movie. You know, I just pulled these because I didn't know what else to pull, and I could be wrong on both counts. Where was I? Lackluster. No, we did that. Better than the movie. Crossroads. It's got Steve Vai on here playing the licks in the competition sequence. It's got Crossroads down in Mississippi, Cotton Needs Picking, etc., etc., and Rush. Rush is primarily Eric Clapton. Buddy Guy does a track on here. But this is where the song Tears in Heaven made its first appearance. So there's 2 soundtracks that might be better than the actual movies. And I could be wrong. Okay. Number 9. Favorite art or colored vinyl. I'm going with this version of The Big Lebowski. There are other versions. There's one record store day version that's newer than this one, but I love this artwork on this version. There's the cast. I love the music on it too. And as a bonus, they call this White Russian because that beverage is featured in the film. But I love this picture better than the artist's rendition. And this was the first time it was on vinyl. And I also have the CD version. Reissue or first time on vinyl. I don't think this has ever been put on vinyl. This is music from the motion picture soundtrack You Can Count on Me. And I have a pre-advanced copy for promotional use only. It's on E Squared, which was a label started by Steve Earle and Ray Kennedy. And Steve Earle also adopted a band, which are some friends of mine. They were at that time called the V-Roys. So the V-Roys made it onto this soundtrack, which is one reason I would like to see it get on vinyl. It starts out with Steve Earle and Dale McCrory Band, and then the V-Roys do Straight Highway. Marat is on here, Bat Kennedy's on here, the V-Roys again, Six String Drag, which is another band that I like out of the Raleigh area, and more V-Roys tracks. So I would like to see this one get reissued on vinyl. I don't even have the cover for mine because it's a pre-advance. Artemis Records and E Squared. Small film, but I really liked it. Number 11, Bargain Bin. I got this one for $5.99 out of the Bargain Bin. This is Passion by Peter Gabriel. Music for The Last Temptation of Christ, the Martin Scorsese film. And it's very, very good score, mostly instrumental. Okay. Favorite band or artist performs in the soundtrack. I'm going to go with, I could have picked several, but here's The Life Aquatic. And it's got a couple of David Bowie tracks on here, and Sue George does some David Bowie tracks on here. It's also got Devo and Joan Baez, Iggy and the Stooges, the Zombies. So it's a good film and a good soundtrack. So there's that one. Actor in the film actually performs the song. I'm going to go with The Big Easy. And this one has a track on here, Closer to You, performed by Dennis Quaid, who was in the film. And it's actually not terrible. But this soundtrack got me interested in Zydeco music and Louisiana style music, and I've been collecting a lot of that stuff ever since. So thank you to The Big Easy. Band or artist actually performs in the film, and there's several ways I could go with that. I'm going to go with the Vanishing Point soundtrack, which I actually have the OG of this on vinyl back in my storage unit. This soundtrack and the movie came out in 1970. And in 1970, I was 15 years old, and I was working my very first official job in a movie theater when this came out. So I saw this movie quite a few times at work. And there's a scene in it in the desert where Delaney and Bonnie are performing You Got to Believe, which is on the soundtrack, and they performed it live in the film. So there's one of those. Band runners, the last movie watched. The last movie I watched, Yellow Submarine. I watched this the other night on the Blu-ray, specifically because I have a great surround sound system and I wanted to hear these songs mixed in 5.1. So that's why I popped that one in and gave it a watch. And it's been some time since I had seen it. Great little animated film where the Beatles pop up for a moment at the very end. RSD score. I have several. I'm going to go with Zabriskie Point, original motion picture soundtrack. This is the double LP expanded edition. Pink Floyd is featured in this film, and Jerry Garcia is featured in this film. You've also got Kaleidoscope and John Fahey, the Youngbloods. But what's special about this one is on disc 2, side A, Love Scene Improvisations by Jerry Garcia. You've got a whole side of Jerry Garcia noodling. And then the second side is all Pink Floyd variations. So I was glad to get my hands on that. I've never seen the movie. I don't have a soundtrack from my birth year, so I'm skipping number 17. Blind Buy. Music from The Sopranos. Again, it's not a movie. I never really watched the series, but there's a lot of good stuff on this soundtrack from the show. Casey Chambers, R.L. Burnside, Otis Redding, Nils Lofgren, Cake, Frank Sinatra, the Rolling Stones, Elvis Costello, the Kinks, Bob Dylan, Keith Richards, the Pretenders, Van Morrison, and a lot of dialogue from the show on here, which made it interesting. So that's my blind buy, and I'm sticking to it. Multiple formats. Now, there were several of these I could have picked, like Help by the Beatles. But I grabbed Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? This is a sealed copy on the CD. I was doing some work for the Lost Highway label at the time, so they sent me this stuff. They sent me a copy of this on vinyl, which I have sealed. And there's a deluxe edition of this, which is 2 CDs. So I also have that. So that's my multiple formats. Lifts Your Mood. I could have picked a bunch, but here's Pirate Radio, a 2 CD. It's got the Turtles, the Kinks, John Fred and his Playboy Band, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, the Beach Boys, Smokey Robinson, Herb Alpert, Jeff Beck, the Who, Trogs, Cat Stevens is on here, Procol Harum's on here, Otis Redding's on here, Cream, the Who, the Easy Beats, Dusty Springfield, Isley Brothers, David Bowie. It's a 2 CD. Great stuff. Okay, that basically does away with the 20 questions except for the bonus. I'm going to quickly just run through some of these. I've got You Got Mail, Vision Quest, Strange Days, Dead Man Walking, Long Walk Home, again by Peter Gabriel, Mystery Train, Jim Jarmusch film, which I also have on Blu-ray, Fahrenheit 9/11, John Travolta, Phenomenon, Boys on the Side, Wattstax, another concert film, I Am Somebody, Searching for the Wrong-Eyed Jesus. How many of you have this one? Jim White Presents, Future Soundtrack for America. This is a single. It's Probably Me by Eric Clapton from the Lethal Weapon 3. Here's a sampler from Open Season, Paul Westerberg, Love You in the Fall. Music from Deadwood, and this is the uncensored version. That's also not a movie. Mad Dogs and Englishmen, Joe Cocker, Leon Russell, Rita Coolidge and Company. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Angel. I also have the OG of this on vinyl. I Am Sam, with a lot of artists covering Beatle tunes. including the Black Crowes, Stereophonics, Ben Folds, Sheryl Crow, Ben Harper, Eddie Vedder, the Wallflowers, Rufus Wainwright, Amy Mann, Sarah McLachlan, Howie Day, Paul Westerberg again, Granddaddy, which is also Paul Westerberg, I believe, and Nick Cave. Once Around, with the late Danny Iowa singing Fly Me to the Moon. And the Lost Boys, which Miss 80's showed the vinyl version in her video. Great soundtrack. I've always loved this. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. And here's a small film I'll bet nobody else has. The Slaughterhouse Rule. It's got Jay Farrar of Sunvolt, Vic Chestnut, Freakwater, Wiley and the Wild West, Blood Oranges, Ryan Adams, Nico Case, Malcolm Holcomb Group, Uncle Tupelo, and the Pernice Brothers. It's on Bloodshot Records, one of my favorite labels. The Beatles, Hard Day's Night. This is a counterfeit. I believe it's a Canadian counterfeit. There's a telltale sign in here because they've got released through Alan Owen, screenplay by United Artists, and that should be the other way around. This one's very special. This is the first ever release of Harold and Maude's soundtrack. It came in various versions, different colored versions. This is the black version. There's only 1,000 of these. It's got a single in it. It's got a booklet in it. It's got 2 movie size posters in it. It's got alternate versions. Great release. Look it up on Discogs and it breaks down all the various versions. Game of Thrones. This would be the first edition soundtrack. They did several volumes. The Wes Anderson film, The Darjeeling Unlimited, on translucent green vinyl. Great soundtrack. And he took a bunch of songs that actually came from other films in history and used them on this soundtrack. But it's also got the Kinks are on here somewhere. I'm not seeing it. But anyway, there's that one. And another record store day. Reservoir Dogs. This one's on pink vinyl. Original motion picture soundtrack. Little Green Bag. Alright, that's going to wind it up for me. As I say, I'm pretty sure I have some more put away. But for the moment, that's all I'm going to show. My shout out is going to be to Rachel the Music Man. Not that I know of anybody in the community that does a lot of soundtracks, but Rachel is the first person I saw do this particular challenge, and so she doesn't need my help. But shout out to Rachel. Go check her out and sub up. And I missed this one. It's not a movie, but it was a PBS special. 500 Nations. This is hard to come by, by New Age keyboard artist Peter Buffett. No relation to Jimmy that I'm aware of. And it's a great soundtrack. So, that's it. I hope you're having a great day. And go listen to a movie soundtrack or put on a movie. And we'll see you next time. I almost forgot. I can't listen to good music without my wingman, actually wing girl, Molly. Have a look up here, Molly. Good girl. Good girl. You want to go for a walkie? All right.